Welcome to Blue Moon Radio on the Live 365 format. You can listen by computer or app. All Elvis, all the time. Every studio recording, movie soundtrack, and live album released from 1954 to 1977. Live broadcasts and special broadcast of rare albums. 24/7. 365 days a year, all free and no ads ever. Elvis will always be at your fingertips, in your car, and even better, in your bedroom with Blue Moon Radio. Who can ask for more? Did I say it's free? Start listening today.
You'll even be in your bedroom. I love that comment.
Yeah.
Hey, Dylan. Good to see you, buddy. Let's see. We got a whole whopping 4, man. Oh my God, we're cranking it today. So how's everybody doing? Who's all on board right now? We're up to 5 now. We're getting there. It's a Saturday morning. We're ready for a fun chat on Mr. Colonel. There is Renee. It didn't pop in there. Hey, Renee.
Mr. Hidden Minds.
Hello, Teresa. Yeah, we got a fun conversation today on the Colonel. I got some cool stuff to put in with the book chat. So I'm going to share share what we're going to see today. We'll begin with three videos, and all about the Colonel. And then we're going to get into the book chat. So, as we know, the Colonel can always be a little bit of a, how do you say, argumentative discussion. Thank you.
Yeah. Contentious subject.
Yeah. So, I read a nice little interview today on with Peter Gronick, and I think I should have actually. Well, let's see. You know what? I'll just read it to you real quick. It's really interesting. I saw it on my phone, so that's why I don't have it here yet. But so he did an interview with Publishers Weekly, and they asked him a few questions. So first of all, he asked how the book came about, and he says it had been 30 years in the making.
Wow.
Ever since him and his wife got access to the Elvis archives, where he discovered a whole collection of Colonel Parker's letters and other materials. And almost as soon as I saw the letters, I saw that the Colonel, who revealed himself in them, was so bright, so funny, so resourceful. So I think we're going to see a different side. I got a nice glow from the phone on my phone. Mm-hmm. Second, I'm just doing a brief, just kind of cliff notes. What were his strengths and weaknesses as a manager? Well, we can really get into a good discussion about that. But he talks about that. But what I thought was cool was, what do you want your... Was that it? What do you want readers to take away from your book? I like them to carry a picture of someone who is a unique individual, as they've never likely to encounter, who created so much of the way in which pop music has come to be experienced. And, that's kind of what Baz Luhrmann's movie was supposed to be about, based upon the book that we've been reviewing, is that what impact did Colonel Parker really have on the whole music scene? And there's a lot of influence there. Here's Lori. Hey. Yeah. So anyway, what I have, I'm going to start off. Let's see. We'll cover some of the comments here real quick. Me and Steve had a conversation about this the other day. He wasn't a manager; he was a promoter, and a damn good one at that. Yeah, I kind of agree with that, but I think we're going to find out in this book from Peter Gronick that there was probably a little more management skills there than what we're really wanting to give him credit for. But I see Susan, I'm here baking some zucchini muffins. Why is it every time we do a live chat, I wind up hungry by the end of the show? Everybody starts talking. Yeah, but when Purple Green comes on here, she starts talking about her what she's cooking. Everybody gets into cooking, and I know everybody still is involved in the conversations, but that's kind of what I really. I was excited about doing this morning because I really woke up in a really down, depressed mood about a few things with this. So, I'm excited about doing this because you guys really liven up the party. Hello, Johan. Good to see you. So I've got three videos here. A couple of them are. So we got about 45 minutes worth of videos between the three, and they're really interesting, very interesting. So it's not going to be. So we're kind of having a watch party and a book chat. Then we'll jump into the book afterwards because what we're going to cover today in the book is quite good. So let me do this. Let's get over here to obviously this is the book we're covering. The Curious Life of Elvis Presley's Eccentric Manager. Really been we've had some really good laughs from this book. We're not gonna get back into that again today. So I need to enlarge this chat because it's a bit
On the small side.
on the small side. How's that? Can you read that? There
Yeah.
we go. That's a little bit better.
Yeah.
One, one of these days, you're going to see me here with a huge magnifying glass going like this. All right, so so we're at the video stream, and back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a little short clip of an interview with Alana Nash that I'm starting off with it first so that I can get over my unsettled stomach after I watch it. So this is she's I really can't stand this woman, but this is it right here. So she's doing an interview on some TV show, and it's right after Lisa Marie's passing away. So the video is only a minute long, but I'm going to pause it at a stop just to kind of tell you what I really think. This just kind of justifies what I really think of Alana, and we'll discuss that when it gets. But here, I mean, just look at her right there. It's almost like, pardon my expression, my shit don't stink. So here we go.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm wondering what was your reaction, when you heard the news of Lisa Marie's passing?
She has to freaking stop about that.
Oh, deep, deep sadness. It really shook me. I think not only.
Okay, so I'm pausing here right a second. I'll play the whole thing again so it's all the way through. But here's what really gets me about her. First of all, when she talks through this interview, she talks as if she's writing a book. The language and everything is like she's writing a book. But look at her wall behind her. Look at the picture behind her on the left of the picture. That is the book. That's the cover of the book written by Albert Goldman, who writes negative. His books have got to be on the dark side of every. He's written books about. He really became famous with the book on Lenny Bruce, but he did one on John Lennon. He's done one on Jimi Hendrix, and this one was. When you read the reviews on Amazon, this book, you got people who loved it, and you got people who despised it because they said it's just negative, 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 negative. I read the book and I tossed it. I don't even have it anymore. I thought it was a piece of trash. And to tell you how much of a piece of trash I thought it was, I still have Elvis What Happened sitting on my shelf. So between the two, it's one thing because that book, I kind of keep Elvis What Happened as a reference point to show the hatred that people had for the I don't know, about the anger that those three, Sonny, who was it, Sonny, Red, and Dave Hebler, had for Elvis at the time when they should have never had it. But anyway, okay, I'll start this from the beginning one more time. It's only 56 seconds. Just listen to how she talks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm wondering what was your reaction, when you heard the news of Lisa Marie's passing?
Oh, deep, deep sadness. It really shook me. I think not only because I had interviewed her and been around her a little bit and enjoyed her music, but also just that the Presley story is one of great opportunity and wealth and fame, but just equal sadness and trauma and tragedy that balanced that out. And I think we wanted her to be happy and have a joyful life because her father had given us so much joy. So there's deep sadness about her passing all over the world.
Yeah, and since you had an opportunity to speak with her on so many occasions, and you talk about how collectively everybody wanted her to be happy and be joyful, but then what did you sense from her?
That's enough. So I don't know. Maybe you guys have a different impression of her.
She sounds like the default voice from GPT.
Yeah, yeah, probably. But
Oh, such profound sadness. It's like you can see the profound sadness on her face. She's so glad the camera is on her.
somebody's in the WhatsApp chat. I'm gonna let them know we're live now. Come join us. All right, so everyone we can get. So anyway, so now, for those of you who are familiar with Renee of Hidden Minds, this is his channel right here. He's got a couple of videos he posted. He's let me share with everybody on the Colonel. Now these videos were originally done in the Netherlands. And correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's what our discussion, what my discussion was with Renee. But he's translated these into English so that we can understand what they're saying in the film. Now, the one we're going to watch today is there's some interview with a relative of Colonel Parker's talking about him, and Renee starts off with a little narration. He does a little narration to it, but it's very interesting. So let's just let me get into the comments over here. Did she really interview Lisa all that much? I don't know. My name is Pascal. Okay. You guys want to have a live chat with me on WhatsApp, and I'm trying to do a live show, but I don't know how much she interviewed, and I'd really be curious to know what Lisa's impression was of her, because I don't strike Lisa as being able to take a personality like that very well.
No.
CNN couldn't find someone else to interview on that day.
Yeah, you're probably right, Susan.
That's a very good point. Hold on a second, guys. Let me get this. Let me get this. Oh, no, that's not it. Okay, I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get the share copy. I'm gonna send him a link. Apologize, guys. Come join us at We Are Live Talking a Book. That's really good sentence structure, isn't it? All right. Hey, listen, it all works if I can get that. Anyway, so that's a good point. Was there nobody else to interview? Maybe the local sanitation manager would have been pretty good, or somebody like that. All right, so let's share this video from Renee. It's called "Colonel Tom Parker Family Reveals Elvis Manager's Hidden Past." So I've watched it once through, and I started kind of skimming through it again. It's really good. So let's take a listen.
You've heard the name Colonel Tom Parker, the man behind Elvis Presley. But did you know that his real name was Dries van Kuyk, a Dutchman with a hidden past? What secrets did he take to the grave? And how did his family in the Netherlands experience his mysterious disappearance? Today, for the first time in English, we reveal the untold story of Colonel Tom Parker, as told by his own family. Welcome to this extraordinary documentary. My name is Renee, and as a fellow Dutchman and dedicated Elvis fan, I've discovered an incredible story that has never before been shared with the English-speaking world. Colonel Tom Parker, Elvis Presley's legendary manager, was not the man he claimed to be. Born as Dries van Kuyk in the small Dutch city of Breda, he vanished abruptly in 1929, leaving behind unanswered questions, rumors, and family wondering what truly happened. Join me on this fascinating journey as we uncover his mysterious past through the eyes of the family he left behind.
As far as the eye can see, a press of excited youngsters from all over the region are on hand for the return of Elvis Presley to Tupelo, Mississippi, the town where
Unfortunately, Elvis Presley never performed in the Netherlands. Yet the king of rock and roll has more connections to our country than you might think at first glance. This is primarily due to this mysterious man who appears next to or behind Elvis in so many photographs. His name, Colonel Tom Parker. Under his management, Elvis grew into the biggest superstar the world has ever known. Moreover, Colonel Parker was groundbreaking as the first manager to implement the principle of large-scale merchandising.
For licenses to use the Presley name on their products, and to date, he is identified with the following: T-shirts, knit pajamas, pencils, purses, wallets, denims, gold-plated adjustable rings, socks.
So I did my part, Elvis did his show, and we were lucky. Great talent, and we had a great show and a lot of fun.
The way of selling pop music through large-scale merchandising started with Colonel Parker.
Hey, Sue.
He had buttons made in the same factory saying, "I hate Elvis and I love Elvis." This allowed him not only to sell both types of buttons, but also to stir controversy, turning Elvis into the talk of the town.
Colonel Tom Parker is giving you a lot of advice and knowledge. What kind?
Doing good. Thanks, Sue. You.
I think Elvis became a superstar because they were a wonderful team. Each one allowed the other to do the job that they did best.
The Colonel had told Elvis that famous line, you know, "You've got $1 million worth of talent, you sign with me and I'll make sure you get that $1 million." Well, he did that.
Colonel Parker managed Elvis Presley for 22 years, from the moment the singer was merely a regional celebrity in Tennessee to the day Elvis was found dead in the bathroom of his Graceland estate.
What do they always, everybody, they do this in every video about Elvis, is when he was found dead in his bathroom. Instead of saying until he passed away. It's just, you know, it's crazy.
As Elvis changed the music scene, Colonel changed the management scene by doing things that hadn't been done before as a manager.
There wasn't anyone out there ahead of Elvis and the Colonel. They were the pioneers that were blazing the trails, and they made it possible for these other people to come along behind them.
Today marks exactly 100 years since Colonel Parker was born. According to his own claims, he was born in Huntington,
I've been waiting for my muffin to rise for a long time.
West Virginia, as the son of a traveling circus family. But nothing could be further from the truth. The story of the man who stood at the cradle of rock and roll and became one of the most powerful figures in the music industry begins in the back house of this building in Breda, at a time when Colonel Parker still went by the name Dries van Kuyk.
Excuse me, sir.
My muffin fell flat.
Do you know which very famous Dutchman was born here?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Colonel Tom Parker.
Oh, is that here?
Yes, that was this place. Manager of Elvis Presley.
Oh, but I didn't know that this was the place.
Do you know his real name?
No, I don't know exactly.
Dries Van Kuyk.
No way. He had a Dutch name?
Indeed, he was arguably one of the most famous Dutch people worldwide, even today. We as Dutch people can be proud that a piece of rock and roll was born in this house.
Sure, it reflects our entrepreneurial spirit and the ability to recognize talent.
You could even say Dries Van Kuyk stood at the cradle of modern pop culture.
Without a doubt, by keeping it accessible, broadly appealing, and turning Elvis into an almost religious phenomenon.
Noem het religieus te laten zijn in zijn fenomeen Elvis, zeer zeker. Welcome to my world.
This is the story of Dries Van Kuyk, a cheerful boy from Brabant who, in 1929,
Look, he was actually thin one day.
Suddenly vanished from the Netherlands. Although he loved his mother and his siblings dearly, he left without saying goodbye. His sudden departure still raises many questions among his family, even now, 80 years later. But there are even more unanswered questions.
This is really good,
Did Elvis know his manager was an illegal immigrant from the Netherlands?
Very enjoyable.
Is that really why Elvis never performed outside of America? Is there truth in the story that Elvis Presley visited the Netherlands in 1959 carrying a mysterious letter for the Van Kuyk family? And did Elvis's manager really have something to do with an unsolved murder in Breda? For the first time, we gain access to all the secret police reports. One thing is certain, until his death in 1997, Dries denied being Dutch and refused to see his family again. To this day, his nieces and nephews wonder what the secret of their famous uncle might have been. And now, for the first time, his widow in America speaks about Dries Van Kuyk's carefully hidden Dutch past, also known as Colonel Tom Parker.
He clearly had some kind of secret. But will we ever find out what it was?
No, we'll never know. Number, he took something to his grave.
Yes, he was famous. People like Elvis Presley are famous and well known. But there's mystery around Colonel Parker because nobody really knows anything about him.
We always thought he had a great fear that his residence in America was illegal. We assumed that he feared being deported even if he never left America.
Always an outsider, a true free spirit from the start.
Oh, Colonel's personality was so complex. Colonel was a genius, there's no doubt about that. And 90% of what you read about Colonel is fiction.
If you look at this picture in his eyes, you see determination.
A vision for the future, confidence. It's as if he's saying, here I am, bring it on. I can take on the whole world.
And he certainly did.
Yes, indeed, he was very strong-willed and had an incredibly strong character. I think those qualities made him who he became.
Dries grew up in a large family with 8 brothers and sisters. His father worked as a stable manager at Van Gent and Loos, a respectable position at the time. The entire family lived in a small apartment above the stables. Young Dries didn't have a good relationship with his father, but he adored his mother.
He came from an authoritarian household, where Grandpa, his father, was the boss. His word was law, but Dries never listened.
He said that he was a very active child, and he would wander away from home. He wanted adventure. He was
no need to
always
apologize, Ellen. Glad you're here.
Despite the fact that Dries became one of the wealthiest and most successful figures in the American music industry as Elvis Presley's manager, he had little success in the Netherlands. To earn extra money, he came up with the strangest schemes.
Even as a child, we always wanted to make money. At one point, he caught some sparrows and painted them yellow, pretending they were canaries.
He painted sparrows yellow. That probably wouldn't be allowed by animal rights organizations today.
He then sold them as canaries.
Of course, the buyers soon complained that the birds didn't sing well. He would reassure them, saying it was due to adjustment issues, and after about 6 weeks, they would sing beautifully. That calmed the buyers down.
In Breda, he got his first taste of show business. Every year, Bever's Circus pitched its tent on the Kloosterplein, right across from Dries's house. It soon became his greatest dream to start his own circus one day.
He thought it was fantastic, seeing all those animals. He took every opportunity to do odd jobs at the circus, from around the age of 12.
After watching a horse act at the circus, Dries decided to organize his own act, secretly using his father's heavy draft horses in the stables under their home, without asking permission.
One day, when my grandfather was gone, Dries secretly went downstairs, let the horses out, and started training them. He would have them run in circles, standing in the middle with a whip. Children from around the neighborhood and school would come watch, but it wasn't free. They had to pay a few cents. That was Uncle Dries. It was never free.
His dream was to become either the boss of a fairground or the director of a circus.
That was his wish?
Yes, that was his wish.
In a way, you could say he succeeded.
In a way, yes, because in my view, Elvis's career was also a kind of circus.
Hey, Ad, this must be your Elvis Presley collection, right?
No, actually, I'm not much of an Elvis fan. I'm more into Marilyn Monroe.
But how is it possible that you're such a big Marilyn Monroe fan while your uncle was Elvis Presley's manager?
Well, I never felt obligated, honestly. I discovered my own preference, and oddly enough, I found myself drawn to Marilyn Monroe's life, which also ended tragically. So, in that sense, there's a similarity between Elvis and Marilyn.
But you've never been an Elvis fan?
No, it wasn't my kind of music. My type of music was Mario Lanza.
Which is quite funny, because Elvis himself was a huge fan of Mario Lanza. He loved opera immensely. Not many people know that.
As a young man in Breda, Dries was determined to become an important figure in the entertainment world. But in 1925, he was still far from realizing this big dream. That year, his father passed away. Soon afterward, Dries moved to Rotterdam, where his uncle, who worked in shipping, lived. Though Dries regularly visited his mother in Breda, he also wrote several letters to her from Rotterdam. One of these letters has survived, written shortly before his rushed departure to America.
Dear Mother, I've received your card and read that you thought it better not to buy a suit. I won't do that then. I'll buy new shoes first, a straw hat, and a raincoat in the fall. Mother, next time you send my clothes, please include that woolen vest. I'll see when I can come home. Goodbye, Mother. See you soon.
But Dries never returned home. His mother would never see him again, and until her death in 1958, Marie Van Quake was left uncertain about her son's fate. The question remains why Dries left so abruptly and took nothing with him.
You could conclude that Dries did indeed have some kind of secret.
Yes, indeed he did, yes. That was the case.
But do you have any idea what it might have been?
Yeah.
Yes. The murder.
On May 17, 1929, a violent robbery and murder occurred at Nieuwe Bostraat, 31 in Breda. According to police records, it was the only murder that year in Breda. The crime took place in the same neighborhood where Dries's mother lived. The victim, Anna van den Ende, was only 23 years old.
She was brutally struck on the head with a metal object. The perpetrator scattered white pepper around her body afterward to confuse tracking dogs and prevent being traced.
And this murder remains unsolved?
Yes, as far as I know, the police never had a serious suspect who they believed committed the murder.
My grandmother lived on Borststraat, and opposite there was a small grocery shop owned by Van den Ende. When this woman was murdered, money was stolen, and someone was seen fleeing with a crowbar onto Borststraat. Back then, people gossiped a lot. A few weeks later, my Uncle Dries disappeared, and people quickly connected these events. They thought he must have done it. He needed money to go to America.
But the police investigation went nowhere?
As far as I know, the police never had a serious suspect they truly believed committed the murder.
Songs were sung about the murder, and soon rumors spread that Dries was responsible for Anna van den Ende's death. If true, this murder would have a direct connection to Elvis Presley's career.
The man did not have the personality of a killer, no. In fact, he was very, very soft and very sentimental inside.
I am 100% certain, knowing my family and knowing my uncle, my mother's father's brother, that he did not commit that murder.
The problem with rumors is that they're always believed to some extent.
But could there be a chance, or is it entirely bizarre and impossible?
I cannot prove it. I can't prove one or the other.
The facts support the family's story. Dries van Kuijk is never mentioned in police reports. Moreover, he wasn't even in Breda that spring. He was living in Rotterdam. Yet Dries disappeared in a manner resembling an escape.
He left behind a significant part of his clothing, his Bible, and even some money he'd saved. These aren't things you'd normally abandon if you plan to flee to America.
I think the Netherlands was too small for him. He wanted to see the world. He wanted adventure. That's probably why he left without a trace, with nothing at all.
It's often said that Dries crossed the ocean with the Holland-America line, but the truth is much less glamorous.
Colonel was on a ship that was brought to shore by the Coast Guard because it was carrying materials that were not legal.
I kind of sidetrack here real quick. I was thinking this. So I discovered something this morning. I was reading something about the Titanic, the ship reminded us. Did you know that to this the swimming pool that was on the Titanic to this day is still filled with water?
And he was simply a ship hand.
Stupid, huh?
And when they got to the United States, the Coast Guard turned loose the men on the ship because they knew the workers had nothing to do with the cargo.
Basically, it was a smuggling ship or something?
It was basically probably liquor, probably alcohol.
Sometime around June or July of 1929, Dries set foot on the American East Coast.
These are great videos.
The America he encountered must have been drastically different from what he'd imagined.
1929. The financial house of cards collapses, and the overinflated stock market plunges into a Great Depression. A financial panic grips the world.
Colonel had a very difficult time when he first came here. He had very little money. He didn't speak English. He told me he learned English by reading newspapers that people had discarded.
You found them on the street?
He found newspapers in trash cans and places like that, and that's how he learned his English.
Without speaking the language, without money, and without official documents, it was nearly impossible for Dries to find work, especially since the country was suffering from the worst economic crisis in its history. During his early years in America, the young man from Brabant lived a wandering existence, drifting from city to city.
Colonel was a hobo riding the rails, and he had some very bad situations where he was beaten, and it was a tough life. If one hobo had a few dollars, a stronger hobo might take it away from him. It was hard.
Somewhere around 1930 or 1931, Dries joined the U.S. Army. By making this choice, he formally lost his Dutch nationality. During this period, he continued sending money to his family in the Netherlands.
So after that stupid physical, he goes and joins the army. Or was it in reverse? I don't know.
Payment receipts for $5 have been preserved, as have a few letters he wrote to his mother. One of the last letters dates from 1932.
Wow.
Dear Mother, here is another letter from me. I hope you haven't replied to the previous one yet, because I received your package. Thank you very much. That was very kind. Mother, I don't have much news at the moment, and I have no new pictures right now. I'll send you one in a few months. Greetings to the family. Your loving son, Dries.
Afterward, he sent just one more letter, curiously signed with a different name.
When my grandmother received those $5, she also got a few letters from him. Later, she received one final letter, signed Tom Parker. She found that extremely strange, of course.
Yet this signature would later become a critical clue in tracing Dries's whereabouts. After this letter, the family didn't hear from him again for decades. A recently discovered Army document reveals that Dries was discharged from the Army in 1933. An Army doctor made a serious diagnosis: psychosis, emotional instability, and depression. But his family in the Netherlands doesn't recognize Dries in this description at all.
He really wasn't that bad of a looking guy when he was...
I don't believe that. Absolutely not, no.
You could say he was an odd man, but not like this. It goes a little far to put a label psychoses on him. That goes too far.
After his discharge, Dries wandered from place to place, eventually finding his way back into the entertainment world through various odd jobs. Back in the Netherlands, his mother lit a candle for him every week. It wasn't like Dries to stay silent. After years passed without news, the family began fearing something terrible had happened to him in America.
The family definitely thought something had happened to Dries, especially since World War II had ended and still no news had come. They probably thought he was dead.
Marie van Koyk died in 1958, never knowing what had become of her son. 1 year later, neighbors would claim that a world-famous man visited Breda with a mysterious letter for the Van Koyk family.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden truth of Colonel Tom Parker's life, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive Elvis Presley stories and deep dives into music history. Have thoughts or theories about Colonel Parker's secret past? Share them in the comments below. I'll see you next time.
We're going to do part 2 next week on the book chat as we continue. I enjoyed that. That was really cool. I've never seen this video, and I'd be curious to know if anybody else here has, other than of course Renee. But that was quite informative.
One word for Renee with regard to that documentary: wel gedaan, meneer, wel gedaan. That means well done.
Yeah. Nah, very good. Yeah, that was interesting.
Very enjoyable.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me share that, Renee. I really appreciate that. next week we'll do the second part in the book chat and finish that off. Now I got one more that a lot of you are very familiar with Kyle, who is has the EP Fan Archive channel. He does a lot, and him and I have we do a lot of we share a lot as far as Elvis is concerned, and he knew that I was doing this all this on the Colonel, and he knew about my thoughts about Alana Nash and her book on the Colonel. So I've been talking about doing, as I'm going through these books, I've been talking about, do I want to get all the way into Alana Nash's book, which is like a freaking set of encyclopedias, the length of it is. So I thought, I don't really want to do that. I want to try to, just highlight points. So Kyle created this for me, and it's a deep dive into the book. So it gives a good summation of the book. Kyle did an excellent job, so I'm going to share that with you. I really enjoy this. It's all narration, and but it really sums up the book pretty well as an overall. And so I'd like to get everybody's thoughts on this as we listen to this. But Kyle, I don't know if you're listening. I know you're probably working today or something, but this is it, the dark genius behind Elvis, the truth about Colonel Tom Parker. And this is the Colonel exposed, Elvis's greatest risk. I don't know if the whole thing's AI generated, but I tell you what, that's an excellent recreation of Elvis right there, and pretty damn close to Colonel Parker. But this is about 16 minutes long. He sums it's like a two-person conversation, so it really holds your attention. And then after this, we're going to get back into the book. But I want to put Alana's book aside, and this is the perfect way to do it. Again, Kyle, props to you, man. This is really good. So here we go.
Okay, let's unpack this. You probably know Colonel Tom Parker as the legendary manager of Elvis Presley. Elvis,
thanks,
possibly the biggest star popular music has ever seen, right?
Absolutely. Everyone knows the name.
But buckle up, because the story the sources reveal is, well, it's far stranger. It's much more complex than just Elvis's manager.
Yeah, definitely.
What if I told you his real name wasn't even Tom Parker, that he was an American, and that whole Colonel title, about as real as a prize from a carnival game?
That's exactly where this deep dive is heading. We're digging into Alana Nash's book, The Colonel, based on these excerpts we have, and it really it pulls back the curtain on this incredibly secretive figure, often controversial too.
Right. So we've got this source material. It's full of biographical details, these amazing anecdotes from people who knew him, glimpses into his business style, which was, let's say, unique, sometimes pretty ruthless.
Mm-hmm. Very unique.
So our mission today is to try and figure out who the man behind the Colonel persona really was.
Yeah, looking at his origins, which are hidden, his time in the carnival world, which is fascinating, his management style, and, the big secrets he fought so hard to keep buried.
And while we're doing that, we want to explore what these sources tell us about the cost, the real cost, of living a manufactured life like that, and what it meant for his relationship with Elvis.
That dynamic is key. It's complex, kind of fraught sometimes.
It's a story, honestly, packed with aha moments, and some turns that are, frankly, a bit disturbing.
It really is. So where do we start? The story, as these sources laid out, begins way before the spotlight, way before Elvis. It starts in Holland.
Exactly. The man we know as Colonel Tom Parker was actually born Andreas Cornelis van Kuyk, September 13th, 1909, in Breda, Holland. His dad was a fisherman.
And the sources say he was the first boy in the family to survive infancy in about 9 years, so he was apparently really doted on, especially by his older sisters.
Growing up, his world seems to have revolved around the stables beneath their home and, crucially, the local fair, the kermis.
Yes. The sources really highlight this early fascination. He'd apparently cut school just to hang around the fairgrounds, the circus. Even practiced animal acts with the horses in the stables below their house.
And even then, the book mentions, he paid attention to his clothes, had this sense that he was somehow better than the people around him.
Interesting, isn't it? You already see that little spark of the showman, maybe? A desire for something more.
Definitely. Then there was this brief job he had, loading and unloading ships in Rotterdam. He lived
Thanks,
with an
Charles.
uncle.
Thanks.
Apparently, he hated it.
Yeah, the source describes him finding that kind of regimented life, all the rules and structure, just really restrictive. He didn't fit in.
And this is where things get, well, really mysterious. Around 18 years old, he just leaves Holland abruptly.
The book says he told his uncle he was off to seek his fortune, maybe America, but didn't tell his parents, didn't tell his siblings, just gone.
And it gets weirder because the sources point out there's no official record of him on any passenger lists crossing the Atlantic.
Right. So speculation is maybe he worked his way over as a crew member, or maybe came in through Canada like Halifax. We don't know for sure. But however he did it, it was secretive and permanent.
And this secrecy, according to the source material, becomes the defining thing. It's why he could never go back to Holland.
Exactly. And the book digs into this really dark possibility that this lifelong need for secrecy might be connected to an unsolved murder back in Breda.
Wow.
Yeah. A woman named Anna van den Enden. She was a neighbor. Their families knew each other. Their interests overlapped. Now, the sources are very clear. He was not named in the police report for her violent death.
Okay, important distinction.
Very. But the timing of his sudden secret departure lines up almost perfectly with the aftermath of that murder. So the theory explored in the book is that the fear, maybe just the fear of being questioned or somehow linked to it even remotely, is what drove him away and kept him silent forever.
That's heavy. So this potential shadow hangs over him as he arrives in America, maybe sometime in the mid to late 1920s. And where does this young guy, Andreas van Kuyk, with this huge secret, go?
Straight into the carnival circuit. Like the
Yeah.
sources literally say he joined the first carnival he come to in West Virginia.
And that world. It was perfect for someone trying to disappear, wasn't it?
Absolutely
Tracy.
perfect. As the source puts it, nobody cared if you had a passport or not. It was a world of outsiders, drifters. The book uses terms like hustlers and cons, and this is where Andreas van Kuyk starts becoming Tom Parker.
He must have felt instantly at home. The sources really emphasize this lifelong connection he had to the carnival world.
Cheryl, yeah, I talked about it a little bit at the beginning, with a little short interview from Peter Gronick. My impression is he doesn't come to a complete defense of the Colonel, but based upon the archives that he was able to get, he took 30 years to do this book. And he received a lot of personal letters and things that have never been seen. So I think we're going to see a different light on the Colonel. And but that will probably dispel some of the rumors that are out there about him. But I don't think it's a book that say, hey, this is a complete defense of Parker. Well, no, book's going to be out in about less than about 6-7 weeks now. I'm psyched for it. That's why we're doing all this stuff on the Colonel right now. But that's a good question, Cheryl. Really good question. Yeah. Anyways, let's get back to this. This is really good, Kyle. The way you put this together, it's
always preferred hanging out with concessionaires.
Sometimes things like this could be so
Stayed
boring.
active in the Showman's League his whole life.
Yeah, he learned the ropes there. Picked up skills from guys like P.Z. Hoffman networking, smooth talking, and Sam Settlemare. These were his people.
Then there's this really confusing bit about his time in the U.S. Army. The sources mention conflicting stories.
Totally conflicting. There are photos he supposedly sent home suggesting he served, but then there's no clear official record under the name Tom Parker.
Good point, Tracy.
The book even mentions one record popping up that identifies him as a psychopath.
And get this detail from the source.
Yeah.
The date he went AWOL, absent without leave, September 27, 1932. It's the exact same day the Ringling Brothers Circus pulled into Pensacola, Florida, where he was supposedly stationed.
Whoa. So it connects his, let's call it brief and murky military stint directly back to the carnival life. Maybe explains all those elephant stories he used to tell later on.
Right. Another big step in forging this new American identity was getting married.
Right.
1936, to Marie Mott Ross-Sayre.
She was older, had been married before, had a son, Bobby Ross, and the sources explore the motivations. Maybe it was partly for immigration convenience, maybe some genuine affection, too. It's hard to say.
I'm finding it's really been interesting because the book we've been covering right here doesn't really say anything about that Army stint. We haven't covered any of that in this book. Now, I know it's covered in other books I read, so that's why I'm doing this, so that when Peter's book comes out, we can really do a comparison of notes.
He was known as an amazing cook, apparently. But the book also mentioned she struggled with kleptomania. It doesn't shy away from these details.
No, it doesn't. And there's that interesting quote included from Byron Raphael, who worked for Parker later. He said he got the impression Parker was asexual, just as another layer to the
I've heard
puzzle
that
of his
before.
personal life.
And her son, Bobby Ross, apparently spent summers working the carnival circuit with them.
Yeah. And it's around this time Parker starts dabbling in management, working with people like the singer Gene Austin.
And this is where he forms that core belief, right? The one the sources say guided his whole career. Managers last longer than the stars.
That's the one, a very telling philosophy.
Which perfectly sets up how this carny showman starts climbing the ladder in the music business. He lands this job, seemingly legit, at the Hillsborough County Humane Society in Tampa.
Yes, but the sources reveal he basically used it as a cover, a way to promote country music concerts on the side for his own profit. And it was through this respectable job that he started meeting people, developing this obsession with Hollywood power players, like the producer Hal Wallace.
But the real breakthrough in music management came with Eddy Arnold, the country star, back in the 1940s.
Right. And the sources paint this picture of relentless promotion, sleeping in a smelly truck, setting up shop in a hotel lobby, and pretending it was his office. Classic Parker hustle.
And this is when he starts insisting on being called Colonel, isn't it?
Exactly. Not from the army, obviously. It was purely for show. To give himself an air of authority, legitimacy, a fake title for a world that maybe respected that sort of thing.
The book also mentions accusations starting around then.
Yeah.
Exploiting connections with record companies like Hill and Range, execs like Steve Scholes at RCA, for maybe questionable song publishing deals.
Yeah, getting cuts of publishing he maybe wasn't entitled to. You see the pattern of sharp, maybe unethical business practices starting right there.
Yeah.
Eddy Arnold eventually fired him in 1953.
And then he sees Elvis Presley on the Louisiana hayride.
The moment that changes everything. And according to the sources, Parker's first thought wasn't necessarily, wow, what a talent. It was more like, this kid can make me a very rich man. That was his focus.
Pure potential. Financial potential.
And he moved incredibly fast. The sources detail how he aggressively went after Elvis's contract, getting it from Sam Phillips at Sun Records for $35,000.
RCA helped fund that, but Parker always spun it like it was his money.
Really?
Yeah.
Part of building his own legend is the guy who made it all happen, solidifying his control from day one.
And then he just unleashes all those carny skills on Elvis's career, but on a massive national scale, using RCA's muscle, the William Morris Agency.
Turning Elvis into a brand almost instantly. Licensing deals for everything imaginable. He made Elvis the biggest seller, the highest paid TV performer, overnight. It was astonishingly fast.
It's such a contrast the source is present, this undeniable genius for marketing and promotion, versus what seems like a total lack of real understanding or maybe just appreciation for Elvis's actual musical talent, his artistry.
It seems...
Yeah, we talked about that earlier in this book. That book we're covering now talks about that. Yeah, he a little bit of a genius there on that.
Secondary to the business side, yeah. He was meticulous about crafting Elvis's public image, controlling it completely. Sometimes, the sources suggest, hiding parts of Elvis's real personality.
And yet, there's that really touching letter the book mentions from Elvis to Parker, where he says, "I love you like a father."
It shows the complexity of the relationship.
It really does. Which makes it even more jarring when the sources reveal Parker was constantly making these hidden side deals throughout their entire time together. Deals that benefited Parker directly, often secretly, sometimes at Elvis's expense.
That pattern again. His control extended everywhere, including Hollywood. The sources talk about his negotiations with Hal Wallace, demanding huge fees, top billing for Elvis, no questions asked.
And those weird office tactics the book mentions? Putting his assistant Arthur Hooton literally in the shower during a meeting. Greasing doorknobs.
Yeah. Apparently to keep executives off balance, gain the upper hand, pure psychological gamesmanship. And insisting on that technical advisor credit on the movies. Just pure ego, reinforcing his own importance.
So he builds this whole empire on control, image, and let's be honest, manipulation. One of the biggest moves, strategically detailed in the sources, was pushing Elvis into the Army in '58.
Yes, the book lays out his thinking. Make Elvis look like a patriotic, all-American boy. It helped clean up his somewhat rebellious image from the early days, and Parker promised him, "You'll come back an even bigger star."
Which he did. But there's that poignant detail the sources bring up. Parker couldn't visit Elvis while he was stationed in Germany.
Right. Too close to Holland, too close to that hidden past. A direct consequence of the secret Andreas Van Kuyk was still carrying.
that relationship between them. The sources track how it evolved into this really tangled father-son thing. Elvis often seemed subservient, even when he was getting frustrated.
Frustration he apparently dealt with increasingly through pills, numbing the anger.
And Parker, according to the sources, wasn't above using his own health scares, heart problems, to manipulate situations. He also seemed genuinely terrified of dying, especially after having heart attacks himself.
Then came the Vegas era, starting in '69. The sources present this as maybe Parker's ultimate carny triumph.
Turning the lobby of the International Hotel into basically a circus sideshow?
Exactly, a Barnum and Bailey extravaganza of Elvis merchandise and promotion. It's seen as one of his most brilliant, if maybe slightly tacky, campaigns. Pure Parker.
But Vegas.
Yeah.
It also massively amplified his gambling addiction, didn't it?
Oh, hugely. The sources report he was losing staggering amounts of money, night after night, just hemorrhaging cash at the casino tables.
And here's where the exploitation becomes really stark. The book details how the casinos got their money back.
By taking huge chunks of Elvis's performance fees, Parker's losses were essentially being paid off by Elvis, working constantly.
That gambling addiction, as the source explores it, just fueled this relentless need for more shows, more tours, no matter what shape Elvis was in.
His attitude to gambling was apparently weird too, described as disciplined in how he played, but finding losing funny while winning was serious business. And there were rumors, the sources note, about mafia debts being covered by Elvis's earnings.
This is just a downward spiral. And as the 70s went on, Elvis's health, his drug use, it got worse and worse.
There's that one specific, horrifying incident recounted in the sources. Parker sees Elvis backstage, barely conscious, moaning, a doctor frantically trying to revive him.
And instead of stopping the tour, getting him serious help, what does Parker say? The quote in the book is chilling.
Just as long as he can keep doing the dates, we don't have to worry. Just, wow. Business above all else, above the man's life, seemingly.
That quote really says it all, doesn't it? This period also saw tensions rising with Elvis's entourage, the Memphis Mafia. And then, after Elvis died in 1977, major legal battles with the estate, led by Priscilla Presley.
Yeah. Speaking of Elvis's death, the sources describe Parker's reaction as odd. Immediately focused back on business, famously wore a Hawaiian shirt to the funeral.
Despite claiming grief publicly, Vernon Presley, Elvis's dad, apparently agreed to let Parker continue managing things initially.
That says a lot about Parker, though. Wearing a Hawaiian shirt to the funeral. I don't know how to take that. Whether you just to say, well, that's Parker. Or, you know, based upon what Parker used to say about Elvis, about him loving him like a son, you know, maybe not a suit, but a Hawaiian shirt, you know, maybe a nice button-down white shirt or something like that. But I just, I don't know how to take that. I really don't.
No, I've always found that disrespectful. It was like, kind of like Parker was saying, okay, well, that deal's done, on to the next one. And I can't remember if I heard somewhere or if I read somewhere that RCA actually had confirmed ties to the mob.
Yeah, I've heard that too. You know, I'm. It's going to be interesting what Goronick has to say, because I think there's a lot of this stuff is going to come to light in what he has. It's just my gut feeling. But yeah, that remark, it just no matter, and you know, there's so many people that confirm that about no matter what you got to do, you get that man on that stage.
But those lawsuits from the estate were what finally blew the lid off Parker's secrets after all those decades.
His illegal immigration status, the army desertion, it all came out.
The settlement eventually let him keep millions he'd already made, but he had to return a lot of Elvis memorabilia.
And that original mystery. Why he completely cut off his family in Holland. The sources emphasize just how baffling that was to them. They had no idea why he vanished.
And the book circles right back to that potential link to the Anna Van den Enden murder 60 years earlier. It reinforces the theory that that event, or the fear surrounding it, was the reason for the lifelong secrecy, the
100%,
inability to ever go home.
Absolutely.
The source
Yeah, I
even
agree.
suggests this kind of second tragedy. The possibility that
You know, I say that so many times here, and I've heard Kyle mention this before, and I'm glad you threw that up here now. No matter what you think of Parker, in the end of the day, whether him showing up with a Hawaiian shirt, I do not think Elvis would have been the big the legend he became if Parker had never been involved.
No.
It's all that first, and that all goes to, like you said, the licenses deals, the merchandising. That was a whole new thing. Everything was new. Parker, the whole thing. And so from 55 until the Army, he created the legend. And then from that point forward, he made him the top paid movie star for several years. You know, no matter what you think of the movies. And then Elvis is the biggest. You say Vegas, you think of Elvis. You know, as far as my generation is concerned, even younger generations, like, you know, Kyle's generation and all that, you still think of Elvis. And you got people like that one video that you know, it's a the Echo Will Never Die version. It's a different version of what we watched the other day, but where you got, I think it's 50 Cent driving through Vegas saying, you know, Vegas is the way it is today because of Elvis.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the movies too specifically, it's
conundrum, yeah.
The comparison is much the same as the buttons. You know, the I hate Elvis and the I love Elvis buttons. You had the good movies and you had the less brilliant movies, but they both shared a similarity, and that similarity was keep him in the public eye. That's all that's important.
Susan, but most managers let their talent explore new horizons. He kept Elvis in a cage. He knew obligation was important to EP and took advantage of EP's heart and loyalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Because that became evident when Elvis started dealing with Steve.
Chips.
Yeah.
Steve.
Chips.
Those were the two things that Parker.
Those were his biggest threats.
Wound up nipping it in the bud pretty much at the end, because I think Parker is what caused that division between those. There was a division between Elvis and Chips, and I don't know if it was about publishing rights or whatever. And then with Steve Bender, you know, Colonel Parker was extremely jealous of him. And he saw, I think he saw it down the horizon where Steve Bender could take over Elvis or some kind of, you know, something.
You know, although Steve and Chips were making a shitload or put Elvis in the position to make a shitload of money, the Colonel had the foresight to know that if these people are involved on a permanent basis, they're gonna wake him up to certain things, and he's gonna give me the kick out under the ass, and that's what he was afraid of, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, Kyle makes a good point here too about Priscilla. You know, Priscilla likes to take credit for it, and she, you know, in my opinion, I think she had a little bit of involvement in it. But if it wasn't for Parker still being involved, it somehow, I don't know. That's a topic I need to do a deeper dive into, because I really haven't really done that much. So my opinion is, at this point, is that Priscilla had some involvement, but Parker, right? No, what Kyle's saying is an interesting point to me. I never thought of it that way. It's a good point, Kyle. I'll have to do a deeper dive into that. Okay, so let's finish this up. We got a couple of
Parker
minutes
lived his whole life haunted by this, maybe thinking he was wanted or implicated.
When he might not have even been mentioned in the police report at all. Imagine carrying that fear, possibly needlessly, for a lifetime.
It's a profound thought. His final years, the sources say, were spent doing what he always did, in a way. Gambling heavily in Vegas, even
That's a
after a
good
stroke,
point, Tracy.
still connected to his carny roots. He died in 1997.
And his death brought out those conflicting views again, right? The eulogies mentioned in the source material reflected both sides. Some remembered a kinder, emotional Parker, others focused squarely on the exploiter.
So pulling it all together from these sources, what we have is this incredibly complex, almost unbelievable character, Andreas von Kuyk, hiding behind the persona of Colonel Tom Parker.
A brilliant marketer, undeniably, but ruthless. He built an empire on a foundation of secrets and control.
He comes from nothing. An immigrant hiding his past, manages the biggest star on the planet. But he's haunted. And his own issues, especially the gambling, seem to drive him to push Elvis relentlessly. arguably contributing to Elvis's own tragedy.
The paradoxes the sources highlight are just stunning. The guy pushing Elvis's patriotic army service is an illegal immigrant and a deserter himself.
The manager making millions, only to gamble it away. The supposed animal lover who treated people, including Elvis, like commodities.
Exploiting the staff, his stepson, and ultimately the king himself.
It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does this whole story, as told through these sources, tell us about identity? How much we can shape it, and what the cost is?
The way to secrets, too. And ambition. Where's the line between drive and destruction?
And specifically in entertainment, that blurry line between masterful showmanship and outright exploitation. How much of the Colonel was real? How much was an act?
And maybe the biggest question. What was the true lasting cost of maintaining that facade, not just for Andreas van Kuyk, but for Elvis Presley, the person whose life became inseparable from the Colonel's world?
Good point. Let me get rid of this out of the way here. So, a couple good points here. Now, as far as managers, Dylan, really, no manager is really a musical manager, anyways. Their job is to promote them, to get them in the studio. But all creativity belonged to Elvis. That was stated in their contract, that Elvis was to take care of the creativity. With the on stage, Parker really wasn't supposed to tell him what songs to sing and all that, except for when it got to the movies, then he had to. There were certain, it just got to the point where he had to sing some good There were some really good songs that came out of movies, even whether they were even not hits or not. But there were some really good songs that were in the movies, but there were some really shitty ones too. Tracy says Elvis should have done what Eddy Arnold did, use Parker to gain fame, success, and then fire him. I'm sure by the early 60s, many more better managers would have been clamoring to sign with Elvis. Yeah, we've had that discussion lots of times. I think this is just my opinion, and it may go against the grain with a lot of people, but I think right at the time of the '68 special, right, and just before, and at the time of the '68 special, and American Sound, the American Studios, the Memphis Records, was the time I think Elvis should have made the move. And I think I think a collaboration between Steve Bender and who's the one we talk about all the time. He was the promoter. I can't think of his name right offhand.
Tom Diskin?
No. He was actually a promoter of other people. He wanted to promote. He almost bought the contract, supposedly. Geez, somebody out there probably knows who I'm talking about.
Which guy?
He was Jerry Weintraub. Yeah, Jerry Weintraub. There was a discussion of him buying the contract somewhere along the line, and he would have been the perfect manager to promote. He would have put him, on tour, and then he would have stayed out of the personal business of Elvis. He would have promoted him in movies, got in the movies he wanted, because Weintraub knew what Elvis could do. And then on the production side, the creativity side, I think someone like Steve Bender, Cam and I have talked about this, and we've had this dream scenario, and it's just it's just a what if you got Steve Bender who works on the production side, Chips Moman and Jerry Weintraub. Elvis creates his own recording studio.
Wow.
Builds a studio. He could actually build it on Graceland. He could have other people record or build it somewhere. He could build it in Memphis. He could have other artists come in there and wind up not costing Elvis ever another dime to record his own music, and have the best songwriters. I think about that, and I have to have a cigarette after I think about it. I just get so excited about the thought. But, that's a what if. It never happened. Obviously never will. But something along that line, I think, would have been really, really cool.
That would have been an explosion in the box. A good one.
The movies that Elvis could have gotten into, You know, it's just, the cost of running Graceland was so enormous that they had to open it up so they didn't default on the Yeah. Yeah, and it's good that they did it on an outside source, because if they had, I think there was a talks at the beginning to where the city was going to manage it.
Yeah.
It would have been really bad.
Yeah.
Because when it takes government funds to finance something like that, you're at their mercy.
At their peril. They could have pulled the same instance with Graceland. If the city took it, they could have pulled the same instance they did with American Sound. What are some of the other buildings they got rid of? Stax.
Stax is still there.
Oh yeah, but it's not.
No, yeah, it's not like it was back then.
Not like it was.
I didn't know that, Kyle. He said they're building a recording studio at Graceland now. That would be a good funding for EPE right there, because I can tell you, there's a lot of people that would go there and record. A lot of country artists mainly would go there to record. Oh, maybe Beyonce can go record her next country album there. She can win another Grammy. What a joke! I'm sorry.
Well,
that's my humble opinion. I can't believe she won. You know, even I would have wanted Taylor Swift to win it over her, and I'm not a fan of Taylor's whatsoever. So that's a good point.
If they do that, I can think of a couple of musicians offhand that would jump at the possibility to go and record at Graceland. Springsteen being one of them.
Well, I don't know if it was actually in the discussion to have it at Graceland at the time. Obviously, it was very feasible for him to do it, but I think somewhere along the line there had been some kind of discussion, and that's just stuff I've heard.
Well,
I don't have any legitimate, Cheryl. I don't have any legitimate receipts to prove that, but you know.
As far as I know, he was planning to do the studio on Graceland ground, because they have the blueprints in the.
Yeah, I think that was going to be more just for him and not outsourced.
Yeah, that would have been for his own.
They could have people would have come there. If you had Chips Moman running that,
oh
my God.
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine?
What
I mean, what did the racquetball building cost him in 75? 250K? 250K?
Something like that, yeah. Kyle might know the answer to that. But.
And that's pretty, for its time, that was pretty up there. So I mean, he spent more than that on customizing the Lisa Marie. So he could have easily, for him to have done a studio. Easily.
Oh, it could have been easily done. Yeah, there's no doubt about that. He's got the land and all that, and the zoning. I don't think he would have had any issue with zoning.
No,
to do it as an outsource, you know. And if he couldn't do it right there, he could have done it. He could have bought the property across the street or nearby, and because that was zoned for commercial. Music recording studio on Graceland property would be fabulous. Give Nashville a run for their money. I would think of a lot of studios, and you know what? Keep it like American Sound was. Not tied to any actual production company where anybody. It's all independent. And
independent label.
Right. They go in there and they record it and they take their tapes back to the production company. That's the way to do it. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people just record at home and then take it in. A lot of people I have a friend up in Connecticut. When I lived up in Connecticut, I lived in Waterford, Connecticut for 13 years. And when I went up there, we were building the Mystic Marriott in Mystic, Connecticut. And it was actually in Groton. Anyway, we were building that hotel, and the engineer there that was the on-duty engineer to make sure everything's going fine was also one of the top premier studio designers. And he built Sonolus there that people like Steven Spielberg and Aerosmith use. And then he's done all around the world. He's built studios for other people. And, it's just there's so many opportunities to be able to do that. And he's still got some great product coming out. I talk to him every once in a while. He wrote a great book. I'm digressing here. He wrote a great book of how to build one at home, how to build really your top-notch studio at home. But It's still, if I looked at, he sent me a signed copy, and I thought, this is great. I'm going to take this and build one at my house. So I did a cost estimate. It was going to cost me about 55 grand. I thought, I don't think that's going to happen. I'll just stick with my little computer and all that.
A nice catchphrase for an independent label.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you got the dough, you're good to go.
Yeah. But yeah, right there at Graceland area, right there across the street where they have the planes, and he was still alive, there would be no need to have the planes there, obviously, in that big complex. So that would have been ideal, because when he was alive, that was all souvenir shops. That was all retail shops. Because I remember stopping there when he was alive, and we're going in the souvenir shops and buying bootleg albums and stuff like that. And it was like that for a few years until they finally opened up Graceland. And then, of course, they started buying up everything, and, you know, it's all, but yeah, that would have been a good place right across the street. Plus, too, you don't want that traffic wandering around where you live.
No.
You know, so Elvis still needed his some great points there, Kyle, you know.
Yeah, you're right. We didn't think of that.
There you go. Put it where the foot doctor was. That's a good point. It kind of makes me laugh. Go from a foot doctor to a top-notch recording studio. Presley Studios. What a great thing. So, all right. Well, hey, Kyle, awesome deep dive. I really appreciate that. He's got another one coming out too. So he's given me the opportunity to be able to share some of the ones. So we'll have some ones for some really good discussions. Maybe we'll do some chats on them, like we're doing now. But this was a good overall overview and deep dive into Alanna Nash's book. A lot of things that it's interesting, because the book we're reviewing, we're going to get to now, because we've got, 12 o'clock? We got the premiere of Inside the Studio coming at 2, so we got about a little over about an hour and 15 minutes to discuss the book that we've been reading, Curious Life of Elvis Presley's Eccentric Manager. What a freaking long title. I got the picture up there, but that would be it. As you could tell, I have read this book a lot of times. I got highlights everywhere. Sometimes the pictures all fall out. Lordy, the conversation. Yeah. If he was alive, it would have been on the grounds. The other option EP has is to use the old Boulevard Souvenirs building. Yep, that's the one I was talking about. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was I remember going in there, and of course back then you could get bootleg concerts and stuff like that on cassettes, and sometimes 8-tracks. That's back when, for those of you who remember 8-tracks, and then some of them on vinyl. Somebody would be able to press them, and pictures and T-shirts, and not all of it was really legitimate merchandising, but it was kind of cool. Kind of cool to see all that stuff. C-Cat. What's he say? P conversation was read. The racquetball fiasco was on his mind. Which studio had been pursued before that? They were using him in that racquetball racket. The good thing. Yeah, C-Cat. Lordy, the conversation. Yeah, the Jungle Room had good acoustic. It was perfect for him to do his recording. They pull up that van. I mean, you listen to the. I tell you what, were the best acoustics that I heard on any Elvis's albums, considering that they were not RCA studios, Studio B and Recorder Studio and all that. The best acoustics that I heard on the albums was the Jungle Room and then American Sound. And for those of you who have not seen that picture of that studio, the acoustics in that room were excellent, considering it was, I'm surprised they didn't hear rats running around while they were playing and recording. They came to him requesting $80,000 for a secretary for it. $80,000 back in 1977? Mm-hmm. Oh my God! I got to know something. Inflation. I know. I digress. I digress. We got to start saying goodbye now, so we'll be done before $80,000. 1, 2, 3, and that was. Let's see, what was that, around 1976, 1975?
Yeah, it was October 76. They started with a racquetball venture.
$454,000 in today's dollars. Yeah, hold on a second. Let me just pull it out. I got it in my wallet over on the side there. I got to get the wheelbarrow to bring it over here. Sue, I remember 8-tracks and I found the Elvis Gold album on 8-track at half price. I remember buying. I had an 8-track recorder I bought from Sears. It was really my first big nice stereo player, and it had an 8-track recorder, an album player, and I remember buying the 8-tracks. And of course, it flipping between channels, and sometimes it freaking get stuck and play the same channel over and over. But those were the days, man. C-Cat, someone was with the fiddle with that amount. All right, guys. Once again, Kyle and Renee, thanks for the videos. Those are great. We're going to do the second half next week on Renee's. And then in Kyle, man. Yeah, that's thanks for the discussion, too. You brought up some really good points. I really appreciate Kyle's input on this because he's got some insight on a lot of things. He deep dives in a lot more stuff than I do. Of course, I forget things these days. So, all right. So let's get to it. Let's get back to the book here. So let's have a little bit of discussion on this. I only highlighted a chapter or two. We're about halfway through this book. I know I keep saying I'm going to try to finish it off, but our discussions, which is what I want, go off a little bit, and it's great. They're great discussions, and the chat there is a little bit small there. So let's enlarge those a little bit. There we go. Is that better for you, Kyle? I can see it better. All right.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right. So, Colonel Tom Parker, The Curious Life of Elvis Presley's Eccentric Manager by James L. Dickerson, the book that Baz Luhrmann and Sony bought to use as a basis for a reference of Colonel Parker. And there's a lot of things in here that we can kind of see, where he used. Well, we got a few more. Let me catch some comments here. Yeah, everybody's thinking Kyle. I wonder what Elvis would think of the tracking method of recording rather than the live method. Huh? Oh, yeah. I tell you what I think of it.
It sucks.
It sucks. It's just I like the personal. For those, a lot of you don't know how much involvement I had in recording studios. When I was in high school, I used to work at a recording studio down by the beach, and it was for people coming in making demos and things like that. There would be a few people that went off to be famous people, or they joined other groups. Like at the studio I can't remember the name of that studio, but it had something to do. It was in Huntington Beach, and I can't remember exactly the name of the studio. But anyway, occasionally you would see one of the pre-Eagles come in. They're like Glenn Fry or Don Henley. And they were actually the band for Linda Ronstadt first, before, Stone Ponies or the band on that. But anyway, when people came in to record then, everybody was there. The whole freaking band was there. And my job was to go around setting up equipment and mics and putting around the acoustic partitions, like putting, to block the drums from over bleeding into the other microphones. And everybody would record live in the different channels. And then when they play it, if they say, okay, they would come back and do an overdub of maybe the guitar player or the vocals. It was easier that way, but it was all live. Computers did not exist then. You didn't even have watches were all dial. It was just that was the way it was done. And when you listen to these recordings like that, to me, it's better than the perfection that you get with digital. So and to this day, there's still some. John Mellencamp still records that way. People like that. They come in there live. And then when I started working for a buddy of mine, I was working for a hotel company at the time, but I was in St. Louis. And so I had a friend who had a studio down in Nashville who did the same thing. He would record for demos, and I would go down there and do work with him. I'd play guitar on some demos. And it was fun because we would sit there, all of us in the same room, and I'd throw in acoustic guitars and overdub a lot of times. And, I'd get paid. The guy would, he would just pay me, but I did more fun because it was like a weekend vacation. We'd go down and record, and we'd party all weekend. But that's the way to do it.
The modern example of what digital does to analog, the modern business example that we have today is Sound City in California. down in Van Nuys, California. They started out analog, and they had big names that came in there that kept that studio going. And the moment digital equipment came in, it killed them, and it's barely surviving now.
Yeah.
And I mean, there were albums recorded there, like Fleetwood Mac's Rumors album was done there. Stevie Nicks did a couple of good albums out of that studio. There were a hell of a lot of good artists and bands that came out of that studio because of the analog setup. And
that's just the way to do it, man. It's just you get more. I don't know how you could put emotion like Elvis used to do in and record in one room where nobody else is there. You're listening to you got to feed off the rest of the band.
Yeah, I mean, we hear that in the sessions every week. We hear that.
Yeah, which we got one. We got a great one today, guys. I mean, I look like somebody beat me over with a pole, but you guys aren't there to look at my pretty face. You guys are there to listen to some tracks, and we got From a Jack to the King, Without Love, an a cappella, and I Slipped, I Stumbled, Affair. So that's a 2:00 premiere chat. So, but Tracy, I love vintage items. That's why I bought a turntable to play my. Yep, me too. And just purchased an an original rotary dial telephone. I'll never forget. We were in an antique shop one time, and somebody had one of those, and one of my kids looked at that, and they go, "Is that a phone?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "Pretend like you're dialing my cell phone number." He looked at it, and he had no freaking clue how to make a phone call with that. It took a little while. Those were the good days. Yeah, it's too antiseptic now. All right, guys, I digress. I have a bad habit of that. So today we're going to get into chapter 3, and now we're getting to January 1955. So let me, I'm going to enlarge this a little bit so I can freaking read it. As long as, you know what, I got to put it back down a minute, get Steve's comment off the screen so I can read the comments. Sorry, Steve, got to delete you. So, anyways, now for those of you, when you think of earthquakes, everybody thinks of California, as far as this country's is. But a lot of you don't know that one of the most volatile, what do they call it, faults in this country is through Missouri and comes down through Atlanta and through Georgia. It's just that it's not active that much. There's been since I've lived here, there's been 2 or 3 little minor ones. I lived in California during the 71, I think it's called the Sylmar earthquake, 71. There were a couple other earthquakes that I remember during that time. And but anyways, in 1955, the year begins off with Memphis shaken by a minor earthquake. So the whole it's saying that to preface what's going to happen during the year. So I'm going to read some highlights like I always do, and we'll discuss some of the things. I'm not going to read the whole book because otherwise we'd be here until I'm a corpse. So it won't work. Tracy, I also bought a working 1953 Smith Corona typewriter. I use it regularly. Yeah, it's like those were the good old days. Mentioned earthquake, and most people think of California, but the fault with the most violent history is in Missouri, not California. So when the next one comes, and it was overdue in 55, it's still overdue again today. Memphis will be leveled and reclaimed by the surging Mississippi River, just like they used to say that California would fall off into the ocean when the big one came. It's still sitting out there, and thankfully. I miss a lot of things about California. Nashville is located 200 miles away and is practically immune to the geological flirtations of the new Madrid fault. So Parker had delayed, dragged his feet, found excuses, dreaded it, but the start of the new year meant he was now officially Hank Snow's manager. And now the games start to begin. Parker's thoughts were on Elvis the whole time. As Parker's management contract was kicking in with Snow, so was Elvis's new contract with Bob Neal about to begin. Scotty's management contract with Elvis still had 6 months to go. So for the past several months, Neal had been arranging bookings for the band in Texas and Arkansas. So Parker's setting his sights. He's putting his game together. Tracy, I'm really starting to feel like a bit of an old fart now. Yeah. Had tiny earthquake in, is that Alabama? One time. It was unsettling. We lost Cam.
No, you didn't. I'm still here.
Okay, sorry. Sometime around Christmas, Scotty wrote to the booking agent in Chicago with Neil booking them in Texas and Arkansas. In mid-January, he received his answer. There are very few outlets for hillbilly and entertainers in this area around Chicago. He was being declined. The letter was neatly typed on Jamboree Attractions letterhead and was signed by Tom Diskin. So he was set up in Chicago at the time, I guess. Scotty had sent his letter to the office in Chicago thinking it was the main address for a large booking agency. Another, do not look behind that curtain deal of Parker's. Actually, the Chicago address wasn't so much a branch office as it was an attempt by Parker to placate his associate Diskin, who lived in Chicago. Man, that's I've read this speak before. I forgot about that. And here we go. I got to laugh at this, and I can see why he'd shorten his name. Bob Neal's full name was Robert Neal Hobgood. My name's Hobgood. I guess it's better than Ricky Louie.
Curious question.
Yeah.
Why do they always have that saying? Why do they always say you're an old fart? What the hell does a new fart look like?
It doesn't matter.
Feel
Look like it smell like.
I feel like a new fart.
Anybody want to give an explanation of that? I don't want. We're getting off on a deep dive on farts now. I guess I'll get on my AI and create a deep dive. Al Dvorin also had a booking agency in Chicago. Tom Diskin worked for. Tell me what AI is. Worked for. I'm losing it. AI. Elvis has left the building. Yeah, Al Dvorin was the one that started that one. Yeah. AI. Cam is a new fart. There, you got your answer now.
Okay, cool.
Okay, Tracy, tell me what AI is. I'm totally at a loss here. Had tiny earthquake in AI. AI is that, or is that AL? Alabama? No, it can't be. Neil first met Parker in the mid to late 1940s to promote shows for Eddy Arnold. Parker purchased a legitimate spot announcements to promote the shows, but he also slipped Neil $50 or so to host the show and to plug when he was on the air. Parker getting his hands in there. It's AI. It's Al's for. Oh, thank you. Duh, I'm a dumbass, Rick.
It's fresh. It's new. Oh my God. Okay.
So, although Parker always denied seeing Elvis perform in the weeks immediately after following the Overton Park Show concert, clearly he did see him perform. He became obsessed with Elvis during this whole time. Parker saw while lurking about in the background, and we see that in the movie. So, to me, this is where Boz has taken this part, because you remember in the first scene when he's out there in his pink outfit, he's at the Louisiana hayride, and you see Parker in the background lurking, watching. This is where I think Boz got that idea for that scene, where it talks about Parker saw while lurking in the background, watching and waiting in the shadows, is the same thing that DJ Fontana saw when he first met Elvis and the Blue Moon Boys. I could just imagine DJ's thought. He's sitting there and he never gets to really play much. He gets to go out there and probably just do a little shuffle of brushes on with the drums, and then all of a sudden, here comes Elvis. And now he's got thinking, man, I need to get a bigger set of drums here. Elvis, who was 4 years younger than Scotty, deferred to his bandmate and manager. He trusted Scotty fully, and when questions arose, he made it clear that Scotty, or the old man, as he was fond of calling him, was in charge. Tracy says Parker was like a bloody spider, casting webs everywhere he touched. Yeah, that's it. Parker saw dollars, and that's kind of a. I don't know. That could be good or that could be bad. I think if he didn't see dollars, then there was no point in him becoming a manager. But because it's just like any kind of business, man. They see something, go, oh man, I can make $1 million off of that thing. Okay, are you seeing double screen in the comments? Oh.
No, I'm not.
Double screen, let me see. Let me go to here. I don't know. I'm looking at the screen online. I got it online. I check it out every once in a while, make sure it's going good. Let me know if that's better. I don't know.
Maybe, Laurie, you just need to refresh your page.
Yeah, maybe refresh your page, Laurie, because is anybody else seeing a double screen? Let me know. I'm going to stop here for a second because I'm opening it up. I'm just opening up full screen for me to be able to read it, but it should not affect you guys. But
no, I'm seeing it okay.
Yeah, we are seeing double screen in the comments. Seeing double screen in the comments. I don't know. I'm looking at it. I'm online on YouTube, and I don't see that. I'm lost. Yeah, no one else is seeing that. Susan, screen's fine there. CCAT's fine. No double screen. I don't know. Hit your refresh, Lori, and see if that does anything better. I want you to be able to read everything. Don't worry. Well, yeah, I'm going to worry because I don't want anybody to have any issues. But that's kind of strange. All right, so I'm going to leave this part alone and see. I keep an eye on it here, on what you guys are seeing. CCAT. You been in the fiddle, Lori? Oh my God, let's. All right, I'm going to keep going here. I don't know. Hopefully it'll clear up for you. But double screen. I don't see that.
That sounds like a paging cache problem.
Yeah. All right, I got to go to the next page here. So, if DJ, who was in his early 20s, would pick up on that, so would Wiley Parker, even if watching from a distance. On top of Elvis's respect for Scotty was the fact that he was a Navy veteran and served in China during the bloody days of the Communist Revolution and later during the Korean War. Now, what we're going to see here is we're going to start seeing the division that's going to start happening between Parker and Scotty, and of course Bob Neal, eventually, because there's a strong relationship between Elvis and Scotty, because like I said there, he respects Scotty very much and trusts him on everything. Oops, sorry, I went too far. All right, so February 6, 1955, Elvis and the Blue Moon Boys were booked for a Sunday performance at Ellis Auditorium. A week or so since Bob Neal took over the management contract, but he wasted no time in setting up a meeting for Sam, Elvis, and the boys with the man he had decided in his capacity as manager would be perfect to do the booking for the group, and that was Colonel Tom Parker. So now they're going to be talking to, Jamboree Attractions about booking. So this is really slimy of Parker. They met at Shorty's Grill. Neal, Sam Phillips, Parker, and his assistant Tom Dickerson were already seated in the cafe when Elvis, Scotty, and Bill arrived. When they were introduced, Scotty didn't say anything about the rejection letter he had received from Dickerson a couple weeks earlier. He could have asked Dickerson why he was interested now and not 2 weeks ago, but that might have instigated a whole new set of problems and taking credit for a failed booking attempt. Parker and Dickerson were there. Neal explained to the boys because he wanted them to take over the booking, and wanted to make sure that everyone was comfortable with that arrangement. Parker, his flinty blue eyes sparkling as he stole furtive glances of Elvis, made a spiel about his past success with Eddy Arnold and his future prospects with Hank Snow and Dickerson. So Parker's trying to sell himself here, man.
Mm-hmm.
Together, Parker and Dickerson worked their captive audience like a team of carny barkers, peddling a 5-cent bottle of snake. It didn't take long for Scotty to size up Parker. He had seen hustlers like him by the dozens in Shanghai and scores of rat-infested ports. He said it was Parker there, and 5 minutes later, he's already got him summed up as somebody from a rat-infested port on the South Sea. He knew nothing about Parker other than that what Neil told him, but there was something in his demeanor that made his skin crawl. Scotty did not have a good feeling about the meeting. For the first time, upcoming series of programs with Hank Snow, everyone agreed that was okay. Scotty wasn't the only one to leave the meeting with an uncomfortable feeling in the pit of his stomach. Parker had the same reaction to Scotty. Scotty was hard-headed, single-minded, the way Southern farm boys are apt to be, and while that suggested the potential for a certain amount of down-home gullibility, also suggested a potential for righteous rage. Right from the beginning, right from the very beginning, at that point, Parker was all about hating, not liking Scotty, not liking Bob Neal.
Yeah, because they saw him for what he was.
Yeah.
I mean, Elvis' mom,
like his mom did.
Elvis' mama was the same. She said Colonel Parker was the devil himself.
Sorry, I'm just checking the screen over here. Yeah, so that's crazy. Parker wasted no time in getting Elvis out on the road with Hank Snow. 7 days after the meeting, Elvis was in Lubbock, Texas, performing on a country bill. I get a kick out of this every time. I never thought this guy was a real guy. Even in the movie, I thought it was just a fake name. But the Duca Paducah. Bill Myrick and the Rainbow. You know what? I'm going to pause here for a second. I got to get a picture of the Duke of Paducah. Duke of Paducah. I got to know what this guy... Oh, my God.
Probably look like a bozo, right?
Oh, you guys, you're going to laugh your ass off. Duke... Oh, what's his real name? Jeez. Duke. I'm going to sign that. Save. His real name was Benjamin Francis Ford.
Jeez.
All right, here we go, guys. I'm going to pull this up. There's your Duke of Paducah.
Oh, my soul.
Welcome to the Duke of Paducah. This is what, 1955? Well, you know what? You had Minnie Pearl. You had all these. They were circus characters, really. Even with Parker not there, these guys were circus characters. What was that one character there that I don't know what she was like getting married in every town they went to?
Oh yeah,
I can't remember her name, but just it's crazy, man. Okay, let's get rid of that bozo. So let me get back to this. I've done lost where I'm at now. I was thinking about the Duke of Paducah. Oh, there. Bill Myrick and the Rainbow Riders, Jimmy Rogers and Hank. 2 days later, Elvis and the Blue Moon Boys joined the Hank Snow Jamboree in Abilene, and Snow saw for the first time what all the fuss was about. The audience went crazy when Elvis performed, screaming, waving their arms, rushing the stage, doing things he had never seen a country artist do. Remember in the movie? Lori, he needs a new hat. That's funny. Kind of look. Yeah, you know what, Tracy? That's good. He does look kind of like W.C. Fields. But what was I going to say So in the scene when Elvis performs for the first time, you got who was that? Was it Hank Snow and Jimmy Rogers were standing there behind, and he's like, what have we got, what have we got here? And Jimmy says, I don't know, or something like that. I can imagine these guys that were polished and so saccharine. They just something. There was nothing fancy about the guitar playing. There was nothing fancy about anything. They just stood there and they sung, and that was what it was. People were fine with that. And then out walks Elvis. It's like he walks back to Scotty and Bill and say, well, I don't know, but they keep doing it,
Yeah.
Scotty sized Parker up, and Parker knew it. He wanted Scotty out. He was upset. Yep.
Yeah. Agreed. The same can be said for Steve Bender. The same can be said for Chips Moman. Everyone that sized Parker up and knew that he was a snake
in the grass. Yeah.
A snake in the grass. He got rid of them very quickly.
Yeah. I've never seen that. I got to check that out. Tracy says that Ken Burns does some great documentaries. The History of Country Music. Elvis makes an appearance. Very informative. I'll have to check that out. Maybe it's a clip that I can cut out and we can review sometime. That'd be good to know. I've been reviewing these documentaries that I want to do, and we'll talk about what I've got today. It's a good one. I might have to do it in 2 parts because it's 2 hours long, but it's a good one. Whatever reservations Snow had about Parker were overshadowed by the success Elvis was having with the Hank Snow Jamboree. Once he got Elvis and the Blue Moon Boys on the road, Parker started working on Elvis, telling him that he deserved better than what he had. And that's where that Ferris wheel ride comes into my mind. Once he had gained, are you ready to fly? Once he had gained his confidence, he hinted that perhaps he needed a better band. Elvis would have none of that, for he, more than anyone else, knew just how important Scotty and Bill were to the creation of the music they made in the studio. But Parker had his sights on the band, and even though he wasn't yet the manager, he was plotting and scheming to get them out of the way. Just based upon what we heard with Renee's video in the book that Kyle did a deep dive in. That sums Parker up.
Mm-hmm.
They'd been out on the road a few weeks when Parker approached the members of the Hank Snow Band and asked if they would be interested in becoming Elvis's band. It wasn't the first time he had done something like that. In 1945, he tried to generate trouble among the members of Eddy Arnold's band, and when that didn't work, he put them on salary, which led to the resignation of 2 of them. And that's kind of what happened with Scotty and Bill.
They decided, I'm out.
Yeah. As Parker was squirming his way into Elvis's life, Sam Phillips was doing some maneuvering of his own. At the time he started up Memphis Recording Service, he was working as an engineer at a radio station, WREC. Working with him at the radio station was Marion Keisker, an on-air personality and host of the popular talk show Meet Kitty Kelly. Phillips tried to hold down both jobs when he reached the point where it was apparent he could not do both without risking a complete emotional breakdown. Well, hello! Look who's in the house.
Hey!
Jesus. Tracy, yeah, we saw that. Yeah, there's Banjo Paul, always early to the party. No, just kidding. Yeah. Good to have you here, buddy. Yeah, C-Cat, isn't that true? Time machines are always a big wish. Just wish you could go back and just put something that interferes with certain things. But you never know what would happen. When you do that, what do they call it? The butterfly effect or something like that. It's just like, it just like changes the whole course of things, and you never know if something could have happened. It's just, you got to take the good with the bad. But I agree with you, C-Cat. All right. So coming to his aid was Marion, who left the radio station to work for him at the studio. Marion's official title was secretary, but she was more of a partner, when it came to the operation of the business. It was Marion who first discovered Elvis, and it was Marion who used her popularity and media experience to promote the artists who were signed to Sun Records. I've always believed that Marion was more of the force behind Sun Records than, Phillips was the engineer.
Yeah.
She was very much a team player, and according to some people, was head over heels in love with Sam. The one person Marion couldn't stomach was Tom Parker. She got it right off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
There's a TV series that came out called Sun Records. It only lasted, I think, one season. I've got it all. I want to try to set it up where we can watch some of these TV shows. Steve does a thing on Discord where he does movies, Elvis movies, and I would never step on his toes as far as the actual movies. But I've got all the TV series and all these things that you can't watch on YouTube because they throw you off. But I got this Elvis series with Michael St. Gerard. I got that whole series. I'd like to do a Discord TV watch with that, and also with the Sun Records, and there's some other stuff that I'd really like. Some of these documentaries I can't do because it's so much music in there. I'd have to keep. Well, I'd like to have that as a source too. So on Sunday's show tomorrow, I'm going to have up there a link for everybody to, as an invite to join the Discord, so that when I do a watch, we'll do a watch. I'm not gonna play any of the Elvis movies because Steve's doing that, and I'm not gonna step on that. But there's plenty of other stuff out there that I could do also. So anyway, just to let y'all know, things I'm planning. I woke up this morning thinking I got to cut back on stuff, and now I'm sitting here having a blast doing this, and I'm not going to. I told Cam this morning in my text, I go, we got to cut this out and all that. I mean, I watched the replay of Inside the Studio, and I looked like I had been awake for five days, and
we both looked fresh.
Yeah, so we need we're going to change the date we record that after the Tuesday Night Live watch party. We figured we'd have enough time, but so you guys give me some slack there. But it's a great Inside the Studio though. When Elvis and his parents signed the special advisor contract with Parker, warning bells went off inside Marion's head. Colonel Tom had been working on the family at least a year in the most polished and Machiavellian way. I can't believe I actually said that. She told Hopkins some years later, that's Jerry Hopkins, who wrote a great biography, one of the first ones out there. We'll have to review that one day. You couldn't believe it, Mrs. Presley. God rest her soul. She was just a mother, was what she was, The colonel go to her and say, you got the finest boy in the world, and it's terrible the way they're making him work. When Parker first set his sights on Elvis, it was hard to pinpoint, Marion said. I know he started following him around to all his shows, and he spent a great deal of time with Mr. and Mrs. Presley, particularly after the show in Jacksonville. Yeah, he started needling his way in there. Girl power. Don't overdo it, Rick. Don't have to do shows every week if you're overwhelmed. We understand. Yeah, I'm gonna pace it. I'm definitely gonna pace it. I have so much fun with this. But, we'll have to pace it. We're going to make some tweaks here. I might not, we might just do, I don't know. We'll figure it out. Right now, I'm feeling good, having a good time today. We'll be able to rest between this and the live tonight. And because we got the premiere, but that's not, that's not a live chat. So it's only going to be an hour. And I'll just kick back. I can eat while I'm, my dinner and all that, and rest a little bit. But I appreciate everybody. Everybody's so supportive on this channel. We love you guys, man. It's just great.
We're so used to doing it now every week. I think if we had to scale back, we would probably go into some form of, okay, what do we do now? Setup.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm so rejuvenated after our chats. Yeah. I'm over, and it's just like, that's one reason why we would say we're going to say goodbye. It takes an hour because we just don't want to go, but we know we need to. But everybody, it's a great conversation, and so I'm rejuvenated. I'm tired afterwards a little bit, and Cam is too. And that's why this week what we did is We recorded inside the studio on Wednesday, which was probably pushing it because of the live the night before, but we rested Thursday and Friday. We didn't do anything. Cam and I didn't even, we just messaged. We didn't even, because if I get on the phone and we started talking, it would have been, it would have been an epic. It would have been a 5-part, 5-episode full conversation. We just go. So we decided we were just going to leave it be and rest, and both of us rested. I messaged him this morning, how do you feel? Rested, but I'm hungry. Something like that.
Yeah.
That summer, as his business relationship with Elvis was obviously nearing an end, Sam Phillips decided to start up the nation's first all-female radio station. He had a new slate of artists who were creating a stir of their own. Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins. Didn't he just say an all-female radio? Oh, I guess it was all working at the station. I was gonna say, I don't think Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee were female. Sam and Wilson housed the new station, which was given the call letters WHER, that's cool, W-HER, in a Holiday Inn on the 3rd Street around south of Crump Boulevard. To Marion's surprise, Sam moved her from the studio over to the radio station to work as an announcer and news reporter. Marion was not happy about the move, but other than tearing down the front door of the studio, which she had purchased with her own money, she kept her thoughts to herself and relinquished her role as the heart and soul of Sun Records. Wow.
That's just
little contentious, huh? Oh, thanks, C-Cat. Yeah, we enjoy the conversation with everybody. We enjoy all of this. So that's why when we do the live, we're doing it at our own pace and we wander off but now it's been a lot easier on me because I've discovered that I'm able to sit back a little bit and relax and have my feet up and just, have a relaxed conversation. Why do I don't necessarily have to be sitting, up in a desk chair, but that's not, I don't need to go there. I'm not going to criticize. It's not criticism. Tom Parker made his move. Because of his contacts with RCA Victor, he had approached them first about obtaining Elvis's contract from Sun Records. They were interested, but there was opposition within the label from executives who didn't think Elvis was anything other than a flashy hillbilly singer. So they left it up to Steve Scholes, their country and western specialist. It became apparent that Scholes couldn't offer the type of money Parker wanted. He talked to executives with other record labels, notably Columbia Records. And I think Atlanta Records was involved in there too. Actually, after picking up a buzz on Elvis, Columbia sought Parker out. As the talks about Elvis begins, Miller had a #1 record of his own on the charts, The Yellow Rose of Texas. With the admonition that he couldn't offer more than $40,000 for Elvis's contract, Miller sent Bill Gallagher, Columbia's marketing director, and Dick Link, another executive, down to Nashville and talked to Parker. They met in the lobby of the Andrew Jackson Hotel, a favorite meeting place of the Colonel. When Parker arrived the next morning at the hotel coffee shop, he was accompanied by Elvis. They sat around and talked for a while, then Parker abruptly excused Elvis, saying he needed to talk business with the boys. After Elvis left, Gallagher told Parker that Miller had authorized a $40,000 advance if Elvis signed with Columbia. Parker nodded politely, then let out a laugh, and then told him he was way off base. He would think about it and get back to him, and he never did. There's Parker.
Yeah, holding out.
In his negotiations. The first lesson Parker learned after moving to Nashville was that the real money was in publishing. He watched Eddy Arnold make as much, if not more, from the publishing rights to his songs as he did from his record sales, and we talked about that earlier. How much money. Remember how we did the calculations of what it's worth today? How much what was it? It was like, by the time it was over, it was like $10 million a year back in 1955, 54. Was a little bit more than that. It was a ridiculous amount.
It was a shitload of money.
The number Parker had to work with was $40,000, a $35,000 payment to Sam Phillips, and a $5,000 advance to Elvis. Columbia had offered $40,000. Atlantic, there was Atlantic, had offered $25,000, and that's Atlantic Records, I believe, had Quincy Jones was involved with that at that time. And I think the fact that they shot that offer down, I think that's where Quincy Jones, and this is just my opinion, got his dislike for Elvis. Had nothing to do with anything else other than that, he turned him down. And RCA had offered $25,000. The Columbia offer would cement the deal, but it offered Parker nothing on the side. He's got to get his little bit of money,
Mm-hmm.
And Susan says, and Elvis being naive when it came to the business side, believed. You're right. You're absolutely correct.
I think at that.
Go ahead.
I think. I think at that time too, Susan. Elvis wasn't really. He wasn't really focused on the monetary side. He just wanted to get out there and make his music. Anything that he got from that extra would have been a bonus for him.
Yeah, I think to Elvis, it's 1 o'clock, so I'm just watching the timing. I think to Elvis, whether he made 100,000 or made $1 million, it didn't make any difference to him.
No, he just wanted to buy his mama a house and be a bit more comfortable and be able to sing his music, make his music. That's all.
Everything else was gravy to him. Just, through his whole entire career, it's just like he never worried about the money. And you know what? It was a detriment to him at times. And it was a detriment, as far as the point when there were times when he had to go out to tour because he was getting broke. Mm-hmm. It wasn't so much as paying off Parker. So it kind of goes a little bit both ways there. Parker's, but the problem with Parker is Parker didn't look at it as what Elvis needed.
No.
Parker looked at it as, man, I got, and as we find out in the end, he had a lot of gambling debts to pay off, and a lot of other involvements that are in, that are kind of suggested out there. And I've always heard the rumors about, Vegas was a very mafia-oriented place, so I can't believe that there was no. I honestly believe that there was something that affected that. They had their hands in there somewhere.
Yes, because can you think of the ramifications had he not paid his debts and the mafia gets involved? They find out very quickly who you are, where you come from, what you do, what you don't do. Had he not done that, his whole existence would have been in the scale.
Yeah.
So he had to do anything and everything possible to uphold the illusion of who this person.
Yeah, so we're here going over. We're seeing the snake in the grass that Colonel was, but the snake in the grass there is really how he's affecting everybody out, and not Elvis.
Yeah.
He's a snake in the grass to Scotty and Bill and Bob Neal and Hank Snow and all of them, all for the benefit of him and Elvis to promote this guy. This is the genius of Parker, because we're sitting here reading all this about Parker and what he did to get the contract and promote Elvis, and nobody else would have done what Parker did. But I freaking lost my. But Parker, the genius in Parker is what we're getting ready to talk about now, is the publishing rights. He saw that through, so he went to Hill and Range. I'm going to read this next part. Parker went to Hill and Range, a New York song publisher with whom he had dealings with while working as Arnold's manager. Since he knew that Hill and Range was in tight with RCA, he made a side deal with them. If they would put up some or part of the remaining $15,000 needed to close the deal with Sam Phillips, Elvis would agree to record only songs that were owned by their company. In addition, Elvis would agree to sign with them as a songwriter, which we know he wasn't. But so there's the side deals, and to me it's brilliant, because it obviously made money for Elvis. Hill and Range agreed to the deal, although how much of the remaining $15,000 they put up and how much was actually put up by the behind-the-scenes investor is still debatable. With what we had learned in Nashville, Parker was thinking ahead, for he knew that if he set up a publishing company with Elvis and required the songwriters who wrote the songs to list Elvis as a co-author, he would make millions. Some of these comments. These are good comments here. I'll give Parker credit. He knew a good thing when he saw it. Exactly. I'll bet you $1 million that Parker was in debt to the mob all during those Vegas years. I've got that gut feeling too. And I still think Goranik's book is going to reveal a lot of things that, because he got he's got a lot of personal, receipts and letters and all that we've never seen. I think 30 years in the making of this book. Can you believe that? That would be right about the time that he finished Careless Love, right? When did he finish? When was it again he wrote Careless? Release here, I got it right here.
Early 90s.
Yeah, so that's 30 years. Going red. I can't see shit. 1999, 2000, so 25 years. So he started working on it before he even finished that book. The mob were also heavily involved in the music industry due to them having prolific ownership of jukeboxes all over the country. Wow, I never knew that. On the jukeboxes. Those were the days, man. Mob was really, I don't think they're so much involved anymore in Vegas. I think they've cleaned a lot. I'm sure they got hands somewhere. There's still some owners, that are still, that it goes back to, but whew, they built Vegas, yeah. All right, let's finish off this book. It's 2:05. We got an hour before the premiere. All right. Well, in retrospect, Parker's decision to accept RCA's offer was the best thing that could have happened for Elvis's career. RCA was the top record producer. Though he could not possibly have known that at the time, September 1955 until 59, RCA placed 14 #1 songs on the pop charts. Many of those recorded by Elvis, while Columbia placed only 4. A contract with Columbia might have been the kiss of death. On the 21st of November 1955, everyone involved in the deal, Parker, Elvis, Vernon, Gladys, Steve Scholes, Bob Neal, we know that picture, we've seen that picture, a representative of Hill and Range and Hank Snow gathered at Memphis Recording Service to ink the deal. A photographer got shots of Gladys tightly clutching her black handbag while kissing Elvis on the cheek, and another with Elvis standing between Hank Snow and Colonel Parker. And then we'll finish off today's highlights. It's going to show how he screwed over Hank Snow. There's a video about mob in Vegas. Elvis was there while they were building it. Yeah, I think I've seen the promo. I haven't seen that video, but I've seen that there was one out there. I'll have to check that out. Cam's doing his magic act again. Here we go. Every time you lean back like that, you disappear. It's like you look like you got wings on you. Sam Phillips was in the same situation. He had lost Elvis in the deal, but from the time talks began, the signing took place. He had earned $35,000 in cash, obtained a loan for a radio station from Kimmons Wilson, and was given the opportunity to acquire stock options in Holiday Inn that would make him a millionaire many times over. And that's one of the smartest moves Sam made money-wise. Holiday Inn, went on to be, and still is to this day, one of the biggest chains out there. So here we go. Let's see how he turns that screw and rams that thing right up Snow's ass. Parker called Snow and asked him to come to Memphis. Here we go. So that he could meet with Vernon and Gladys and allay any fears that had about their son signing a new contract. Whether Hank Snow was told Elvis would be signing a new management contract with Hank Snow Jamboree Attractions that day or simply assumed it is unclear, but he went to Memphis with the understanding that he and Parker were entering into a partnership with Elvis. I just got kind of laugh because I feel so sorry for Hank Snow and all that because they got Parker he was a snake in the grass. That's all I can say. After the signing, Parker asked Snow if he wanted to ride back to Nashville with him so he could throw him out of the car while he's driving down the road.
Yeah, I just put a 10-foot sword up your ass, but you want to come down, I'll take you to the hospital.
Yeah. Oops, he fell out of the car while we were driving. He asked Snow if he wanted to ride back to Nashville with him instead of spending the night and catching a plane the next morning. During his 3.5-hour drive, Snow asked him how the signing had gone. Parker told him everything had gone fine. He said he went into the meeting with 2 different contracts, one in each side pocket of his coat. Luckily, he had just a contract for the occasion. He told Snow they would make so much money they would be able to retire. Snow, what is it? The snowman and Hank Snow's the one gets snowed. Snow went home that day thinking that Parker had signed Elvis to a contract with Hank Snow Jamboree Attractions. In truth, the RCA contract was the only one Elvis signed that day. The contract he referred to was an agreement he had asked Bob Neal to sign, stipulating that out of the 40% combined commissions he and Neal were taking from Elvis, there would be an even split until Parker took over the contract in '56, March. As it was, Neal received 25% and Parker received 15%. The more questions Snow asked him about the deal, the more defensive the Colonel became, reportedly saying, "Don't you trust the Colonel?" Colonel always talked in third person, didn't he? When Parker dropped him off at the house, Snow had a very uneasy feeling in the pit of his stomach. After thinking about it for a while, he made an appointment with his lawyer and showed him the financial statements Parker had prepared for him. The lawyer told Snow that he was concerned because Parker had not formed a corporation to shield their partnership. Snow showed him the statement for the Jacksonville engagement. The lawyer suggested they initiate an investigation into Parker's activities. Snow reluctantly agreed. In his autobiography, Snow recalled his lawyer saying, "Parker's a dangerous man and you could be headed for serious trouble with the IRS since you are a 50% partner of this agency." Snow telephoned Parker and asked him to come over to his house. When he arrived, Snow confronted him with his concerns and urged him to set up a corporation. Parker would have none of that. According to Snow, he flew into a range and suggested they dissolve their partnership. Snow pondered that suggestion for a moment and asked the obvious question, "What happens to our contract with Elvis?" "You don't have any contract with Elvis Presley," Snow recalls the Colonel saying. "Elvis is signed exclusively to the Colonel." Parker may have cheated Snow, but he did it fair and square under rules set down generations ago by the members of the International Carny Convention. Oh my God, what a snake in the grass. The incident understandably left Snow embittered, and he remains to this day. In his autobiography, he wrote that when Elvis died in 1977, he watched a videotape that Vernon had prepared to thank everyone for their kindness during his grieving. His words carried a lot of emotion, and I thought they were well spoken until he said, "Tom Parker was an honest man," Snow wrote. With that, I got cold chills. That's right, Tracy, the snowman.
Same.
So that's it. That's what I got covered for today, man. The snowman got snowed.
Yeah. And it's true. Every time I hear Vernon make that comment in the special, and he goes, "Parker was an honest man." That's like, oh my God. It's like you had no idea. No idea. And
Yeah,
to be
that's a
honest,
good point, Susan. Elvis probably wouldn't be as trusting of Parker if Gladys had lived.
no.
Yeah.
I don't think she would have. I don't think she would have allowed that contract to go on much longer.
Yeah, Elvis probably wouldn't have liked that someone got treated that way. You wonder what? I wonder really at one point in time, Elvis had to have discovered what Parker did to Hank Snow.
No, I'm sure he did.
But at that point, what could he do? He's in a contract. Tracy says, Is there any way to get a PDF copy of this book? Yeah, email me, Tracy, at all Elvis-A-Z. Let me see if I got it in here. I don't have it in this scene. Let me type it in here. All Elvis A to Z at gmail.com. Okay, that's my email address. If you can copy that or what, just save that. Of course, it'll be in the chat and the replay, but all Elvis A to Z. It'll also be down in the description below when this is all up and on the replay. And and I'll see. I know I got it on Kindle, but I might be able to make a PDF out of it. For you guys that I have no problem sending people PDFs, but I do it as a non-profit way. So the only thing I ask is you guys don't, and I know you guys won't, but I just got to say it, just please don't use it to sell it to someone else. I don't care if you share it, but, I just want to be real, careful with that. I do have a majority of the books I have on PDF. Just for the sake of putting them on my, I get a lot of PDFs. I trade things with people. So just to let you know, let's just make it simple like that. I do a lot of trades with people. So Cam has directed me to a couple PDF files for some books, and then some of you guys out there have done the same thing. So I'm not going to mention names, but I have no problem sharing them. So just email me. Anybody email me if you want a PDF. This is a great book. I really enjoyed this book. It's got some really good stuff, interesting stuff. But when you read it and you've seen the Elvis movie, you think, oh yeah, they used this scene in the movie and all that. So, it wasn't there wasn't a script per se of this whole book, but it really shows the influence of of the Colonel on the music industry and how it developed in the social, and to this day, it affects a lot of things. Yeah, I know you guys wouldn't. I just, some things I just need to say, just for my own self, but I know nobody would. So, nobody's ever sold one either that I know of. No one's ever done that. But I look at it this way, I think I've probably said enough, but just email me, and I'll share some things with you. This has been a good discussion. I've enjoyed it. Real quick, I want to highlight some things we got coming up here real quick, especially today. So inside the studio here, this is at 2 o'clock in about 40 minutes from now. We're going to do the live premiere chat. It's just a chat, and we're doing From a Jack to a King, Without Love, I Slipped, I Stumbled, I Fell. I slipped, I stumbled upstairs. I slipped, I stumbled, I fell. And then we're doing Elvis a cappella Without Love. It's only about an hour chat this time because the sessions were real quick, but it's some great music. Oh, it's just we really got into I Slipped, I Stumbled, I Fell. It's got a great beat to it. And then today, later, our watch party at 5 p.m. We're going to do another live watch party of a movie. This one's going to be the Joe Esposito one called Elvis, His Best Friend Remembers. Now, this movie is a 2-hour film, so we're going to do one half this week and the other half next week, because we all know very well that once we've watched the 2-hour movie, we're going to wind up with a 4-hour live chat. And I got to try to control that part of it, because I need to finish putting together tomorrow's live stream. But it's a really good video. It's very informative, and I think we'll have fun. Joe says some stuff, and he talks about it, and it really gets heartfelt when he gets to the point of when Elvis passed away. But if you've never seen it, you'll enjoy it. If you've seen it before, join us for a nice chat about it. And so that covers that. This is the DVD cover. He's got some personal videos that he shares that a lot of them we've probably seen. And of course, we got the Duke of Paducah, but he won't be there. Benjamin, whatever. So let's see. Let's close it out. What we got here? John Daly has them for sale on eBay. What's that? There's a book. Is that books? John Daly sells PDFs. Is that what you're talking about, Cheryl? What do we got here? I don't know who. That's I just got a chat, but it doesn't tell me who that is. The name doesn't come up. I'll have to. I'll check that out. All right. They are so expensive, like $40 a book, and he charges so much for postage, like $30. Oh, no actual books. Yeah, people, I don't sell things for. I got some books here that I could probably get some money out of because they're originals, but I'm not in here to make profit off of Elvis. That's not me. That's why I don't. I'm not gonna say anything because I think anybody's got the right to do what they want to do. But I don't have a buy me a coffee or anything like that. But there's nothing wrong. I have no. I'm not saying anybody else shouldn't do that. I just don't do it. Over this. Oh, from Banjo Paul. Oh, cool. I'll have to put your name on this. Oh no. So Banjo Paul sent me something. Let me see if I can get it real quick. Is it something I can share, Banjo? Banjo. Oh, he's home very recording, bit of fun. Okay, can I download this? Save the downloads. The media can't be saved. Well, that's kind of sucks. Well, I don't know just what. Can y'all hear that? Could you hear that, Cam? Where'd Cam go? We lost Cam.
Yeah, that blew the hell out of my eardrums.
I know, the volume's like really loud.
Oh.
Okay, I don't know how to turn the volume down.
I didn't know my reflexes were still that good.
All right, well, I'll figure it out later. I don't even know if he wants me to play it on here. Donna Lewis has a great story about meeting Elvis and becoming longtime friends. It's a shame it costs so much to tell her story. There's so much stuff out there to share. That I've got. There's a video of a person that was a good friend of Linda Thompson's. Yeah, he says I could play it, but I gotta get the volume. Oh, you know what? Here, let me do this. I'll turn the volume down on my computer. I think that might be it. Okay. Just what I do, if the Lord wasn't walking by my side. I was drifting on the sea of despair. I was wondering if Jehovah was up there. Jesus found me in my sinful life. They heard me praying on the news at night. And now I'm singing the blessed song. Because I'm happy as it goes along. I don't know just what I do. Wasn't walking by my side. Oh yeah. What would I do when a tear fills my eye? What would I do? It's my time to die. Well, I've been lonely, discouraged, burning on the way. If the Lord wasn't walking by my side every day, I'd be so friendless. I'd be friendless on the lonely blue. I'd be helpless, wouldn't know what to do. I don't know just what I'd do if the Lord wasn't walking by my side. What would I do? When a tear fills my eyes, what would I do? It's my time to die. Well, I'll be lonely, discouraged, burning on the way. If the Lord wasn't walking by my side every day, I'd be so friendless. I'd be friendless on the lonely blue. I'd be helpless, wouldn't know what to do. I don't know just what I'd do if the Lord wasn't walking by my side every day. If the Lord wasn't walking by my side. Is that you, Banjo Paul? That's really cool. Was that you? Or was that Elvis? I couldn't. Of a home recording. That's good. Give me some info, Banjo Paul. Pretty cool. Rough, home recording. Yeah, it's Banjo Paul. That was him. Very cool. Good. Thanks for sharing that. That was cool. If only he had done gospel tour. That we talked about that the other day, didn't we? Actually, Rich is doing a thing on his radio station, Tupelo Radio. I'm going to be sharing all the information tomorrow about his show, what he's got going. But he's got a 1 hour gospel hour where he puts it together like it's a concert of Elvis doing all gospel. I listened to it the other night, and it's actually really pretty good. Enjoyed that. Paul sent me recordings too. Has a very good voice. Yeah, he's good. That's. I got some stuff I need to put up one day. Camp's got some. Camp's got a good voice too. All right. So what else we got? Layers. Okay, I think I've covered everything we got going. So, listen, got to get going. Got 35 minutes till the live studio, and I need to eat something real quick. What'd she say? Man, I'm behind on comments. Yes, hey, listen, that's something I want to talk about. She says, right? Did you guys see Riley's 6-minute black and white video? Yeah. Be honest with you, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. I know there's a lot of back and forth about, using great. It is her house. She can do what she wants to do with it. I think she was respectful to the house. She had some friends over there. She did this video about in the process of how she gets creative ideas. I guess it's a kind of an episode thing with different people or whatever, but it's called In Process. I thought it was good that she did it in black and white. Yeah. What do you guys think about it? Anybody? Who's Steven? I don't know. He called Angel Paul called Steve Steven. Uh-oh. Maybe. Let me get that off of there. So, but yeah, that was my thought about it. We talked about it last week in the live on the Sunday stream, and I think I even showed it. It was. I thought it was pretty good. Sure. All right, guys. Hey, listen. We need to get moving. So, thank you, everybody. I hope we all see you in the live premiere in a half an hour. And then hopefully at 5 o'clock tonight, Eastern Standard Time, we're going to be doing the watch live of Joe Esposito's Elvis Friend Remembers. Tracy says, I agree. It made Grayson look living in a kind. There was kind of almost like an eerie thing about it too, which I liked because it was a positive eerie. It was just like, you almost expect Elvis to come walking around the corner. Just kind of that feeling. You knew he wasn't going to. But anyway. We could talk more about it on Sunday. All right, cool, Steve. Listen, everybody, this is going to be one of our fastest goodbyes we've ever had. Right, Cam? Mm-hmm. So we'll see you all a little bit later. Thanks, everybody. Good chat, good videos. Thanks again to Kyle. Thanks again to Renee. Awesome videos. And I can't wait for part 2 next week of Renee's videos. I've never seen that before, ever.
No, neither have I.
First for me. All right, Angel. Thanks a lot. That cool clip. I enjoyed that. You need to send more. Now you're gonna put me out there to have to try to put some together and do. So anyway, peace out. TCB. Till we meet again. Adios. Bye.
Bye-bye.